Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. The Three Principles Global Community, or 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that's committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles to people throughout the world. Today, we have Cathy Casey with us, and I know many of you know Cathy Casey, but just in case you don't, I will just briefly tell you that she has been teaching principles-based programs for over 25 years globally. And her bio is quite full. So instead of reading it, what I'll do is I will post it under the YouTube video when I upload that. So her topic today is, I have gotten impacted by the three principles, now what? Which I think will be a great discussion. So Cathy, thank you. Oh, and I'm just going to ask everybody if you could stay muted until Cathy is taking questions or comments. That's just really helpful for the background noise. So thanks, Cathy, and I'm turning it over to you.
Thanks, Bonnie. What would we do without you? Well, welcome everybody. This is a nice change right now. Because I don't know how many of you are from the States, but right now things are kind of crazy in the US of A. So I welcome doing this kind of just seeing you all and talking about the principles. So first of all, Bonnie, she asked me to do this. It's funny how she did. She said, how did we not have you do these webinars way sooner? It's like, how have we missed you? And so she asked me to do this. And then she said, well, can you pick a topic? And I'm like, oh, I hate that. Okay, what should we talk about? And I threw out maybe 3 or 4. I said, you pick one, Bonnie. So she's the one who picked this one. And it sort of hit me, the idea, wow, I've learned the principles and I've been really impacted. How many of you on this call have been really impacted by the principles? Just raise your hand, you know, and in a huge way. I mean, many people, it's almost like life-changing. It's like, wow, you know, where has this been all my life? And a lot of things start to fall into place, and we get really excited, and it's a great experience. I've been privileged to witness that over and over again over the years that I've taught, but also my own experience. And I remember saying, as soon as I heard the principles, like 12 o'clock on this particular day, my first thought was, I need to take this to the world now. It was like, that's it, because I was doing the work anyway. I was a psychotherapist, intern in training. I'd been a social advocate. I've social worker, all of that. So I thought, this is the answer to save the world, so to speak. And so from that point on, I was kind of like on a mission. and with good results. I mean, I generated a number of programs, the first one being taking this into the prison system here locally in San Jose, California, as well as, you know, throughout the state of California. But anyway, here's the thing. I've been asked to mentor people over the years through many different programs, through coaching programs, through building your practice programs, to training of trainer. I mean, all different programs being offered by many of my colleagues, people I know and people I don't know. And I end up kind of, and I never really tell them this, but I end up maybe undoing or helping people to realize that they don't really want to be a coach, or they don't really want to go out and, you know, change the world, or they don't really want to do what they think they want to do. And that has happened many, many times. And so I thought this would be a fun thing to talk about, because nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about, well, now that I've learned the principles, you know, what happens next? And of course, the thing about Sid wanted this out into the world to relieve suffering. He was very clear about that. That was his only intent. The more people get connected to what they have inside of them already, and the more they can wake up to this, he saw this as the answer. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So I went in that direction of taking this into as many environments as I could possibly get it in. And I've accomplished that. I mean, I have been in many, you know, the business world and homeless shelters, people coming off the street, people locked up, people in drug treatment programs, to successful business leaders, to government employees, to the medical community, which desperately needs this right now. So that, I feel like I just want to grow teachers. That's my mission. I would love to see more people doing this work. But that isn't necessarily the case for everybody. But I think when they hear us share all the stories, like when I share my stories and my colleagues, they share their stories of the work they're doing, and people get like, wow, I want to do that. And they want to go out and share this with the world. And many people do. They take this and they do that, and they're very successful. But then there are many people who find me, and I don't have a website. I don't do Facebook. I don't do anything, except these kinds of programs. And people would eventually find me, and they would say, I want to do what you do. But I've been through all these other trainings, and I still don't know how to do it. Could you tell me how to do it? And my heart sinks a little bit, partly because some of these folks have spent a ton of money with the purpose of doing this to build a practice and to make money and to be a super this or whatever. And you can tell that they earnestly have been trying and wanting to do something with this understanding. Well, when it started, I was in this program that the person who was in charge of the program asked me to mentor 3 or 4 of the participants as they were going through his program throughout the year. So this one particular woman, she was assigned to me. And so we had our first session, and that was back when we did Skype, which was a big deal. For me to learn Skype was a big deal. But anyway, she said, listen, I really, really have been impacted. My life has changed, and I want to become a counselor. I want to help people, and I want people to learn the principles so that they can have the same experience I had. And this is, she was really excited. She said, but I just want to let you know. And I asked her, well, tell me about yourself. And she said, well, I'm not really a people person. And I thought, I didn't say it out loud, but my first thought was, really? Okay, well, all right, that's cool. Well, let's see where this goes. And this is a mentoring process over a year. I think she got 8 sessions, I can't remember. Anyway, over a year's time. And over that time period, as she and I reflected and got really more reflective about the principles, she was an IT person in her company. She was like a key person that was in charge of, helping the company get on board and helping them merge different systems. And boy, I've been in a company where I know what a nightmare that is. To be in that kind of position, you've got to be tough as nails. And again, she said she wasn't a people person, but as she got deeper in the principles and she continued to stay in the position she was in, the job she was in, all of a sudden people were drawn to her. People were looking to her for answers and being open to hearing her and helping them. And it's funny because it took me kind of asking her, well, how is it for you on the job? Have you noticed any changes? And she started to reflect on that. And she said, you know what, Cathy, I feel like I'm helping more people just doing what I'm doing in the same position than wanting to be a counselor. And I wanted to do the victory dance, yes. And she finally got there. And I knew intuitively that she was not one to have somebody come and sit with her to do that process. And she found that her life didn't need to change, but her set of eyes changed, her way of seeing people changed, her level of consciousness changed. And from that, she was having impact on people in the context of her job way beyond she could ever do if she set up a little coaching practice. So that was one example. I'll give you another example of somebody who was really successful teaching the principles and helping couples and individuals and groups, and really, really successful, who I looked up to as, wow, I want to know what she knows. And as I was in my early stages, I get a call from this person, and I said, I need to do a few sessions with you, Cathy. And I'm like, whoa, I was just like, what do you mean with me? I mean, I need to do one with you. But no, she said, no, I really need your take on something, because I'm so caught up in this, and the people around me are too caught up in it also. So I need somebody who's neutral. So I said, okay, fine. And here's what she told me. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do the work that I'm doing. And my first thought was, no, no, you can't stop, because she was so effective. But then, of course, I had to, clear that out of my mind and say, okay, tell me more. And this person was getting pressure from Sydney Banks also. So this is like big time pressure. And so I was listening to her, and I said to her, as I listened to her, the first thing she had was this tremendous sense of guilt. This would be selfish of me to pull back. And my heart sank when I heard that, because I mean, this is not meant, this understanding is not meant, oh, wow, I've learned something that has changed my life, and wow, I would be a bad person if I didn't share it. See, that's something that I'm starting to see all over the place, but it first showed up there in a very big way. And all of a sudden it hit me. I said, okay, now, is there a rule book somewhere, in the clouds, or, somewhere, that says, because you learn the principles of mind, thought, and consciousness, you must do something with them, even if you're good at it, And she looked at me when I said that. She goes, well, no. I said, well, then where is your rule book coming from? And she saw it. She started laughing. She's, oh, it's like I hit her upside the head. She's, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't see that. I said, well, something that's because we're so close. I said, you just being in your life, with your family, and just being on the planet, that is enough. And that was the first time that I actually said that out loud. First of all, to her, but then as I said it to her, I was saying it to myself, like, me being here on the planet with what I know is enough. I don't have to say a single word. And that's because, and Sydney Banks talks about this. I mean, on the one hand, I want you guys out there to teach the world. And then on the other hand, he says, be in your life. Be in your life. You're doing too much. Stop it. And that was Sid. He was just always, he was a paradox. But what I started to realize was I had a lot of attachment to the work that I was doing. So her calling me, that was a big deal for me as well for her. How many of you have that little inkling, like, I should be doing something, or what I'm doing is, like, I'm here to help people? I mean, how many of us, and with good intention, we really do want to help people. We do want to relieve suffering. So there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong. But I think we have to get honest with ourselves. And so here's another story. So in the early days, I wrote a proposal, got it funded to take this into the jails here in Santa Clara County. And pretty soon I was teaching hundreds of inmates to learn the principles. And you can't imagine the results and the stories. I'm sure some of you have heard some of my stories. It was miraculous. And then we got more teachers, and the program was funded by Bob Garner. And his department was Department of Alcohol and Drug Services, but I'm working in the Department of Corrections. So by year 3, he pulls me into his office. He said, okay, they need to take over the funding. They've been getting the benefit of this program, but I'm gonna defund it now. And they have to pick up the funding. And my heart, because I knew they weren't gonna do it. I knew it, they were not gonna pick up the funding. And I said, oh, just give me one more year. He said, no, Cathy, 3 years is enough. They've been on they've been on the boondoggle for 3 years now. They need to, if they want this to continue, and they saw the results and they saw how it impacted the jail in terms of less fighting and all kinds of things that were helpful to the Department of Corrections. So I was I was just beside myself. I went and met my business partner. We met for lunch and I'm crying. I'm like, oh, this is the end of the world. I mean, I was just devastated. And I made a few calls to the Department of Corrections. They said, no, if you guys can't fund it, oh, well, that's the end of it. And I was just like, this can't be. So I called somebody in the community to kind of tell them how awful this was and how terrible the whole situation was. And she listened to me. And all of a sudden she said, you know, Cathy, this is not about you. And I'm like, well, no, it's about the inmates. It's the inmates who lose in this. I mean, I don't care if I'm not in there. And she said, no, you're not hearing me, Cathy. This is not about you. And I said, okay, I don't know what you mean. She said, those inmates have their own God-given wisdom already, period. So if the program is canceled, that it's like you have say over, their destiny, or you have say, oh, no, Cathy, these inmates are perfectly fine where they are now. They have their wisdom. And you need to realize that. Wow. That was huge for me, because all of a sudden I saw my attachment with good intention. I mean, it was helping them, but there was so much attachment from me. And boy, that was a rude awakening. Boy, talk about getting hit upside the head. So I finally said, okay, I let go. I just let go. Okay, what will be, will be. This will be the end of it. And let me kind of regroup and see what makes sense, what makes sense next. And that was a big deal for me, because I never gave up. I've been an advocate since I was 13 years old. I was always advocating and fighting and demonstrating in the streets, civil rights, women's rights, all kinds of rights. And so this was a big deal for me to kind of let go of that. So soon after, we held a big, huge conference here in San Jose on all these, a Three Principles conference. It was huge. Tons of people came, 500 people came. Sid got to speak at the end. And the person who was the keynote speaker was my boss, Bob Garner, the one who said, we're cutting it off. And he gets up and he starts to kick off the conference. And he says, before I start, I need to announce something. Here in Santa Clara County, we've been teaching the principles in the correctional, in the jail system here. And we were getting ready to end it because they were not willing to pick up the budget. Well, I just got a call, they are going to pick up the budget. And that, I'm all of a sudden I start screaming and people are looking at me. And he looked over at me and he winked at me, and I'm like, I said, did you know this? Again, they voluntarily, without anything from him, they picked up the budget. And so that program lasted up until about 5 years ago. And again, a big lesson learned there. A big lesson learned there. So that's why I want to talk about this. Sometimes something's kind of invisible to us that we get invested or we get attached to, or we get urgent. When people come to call me, I want to do this work. I had another woman who, amazing teacher. This woman was an amazing, I think she taught in a high school, and she loved being a teacher, loved it, loved it, loved it. And then she heard the principles and she thought, oh, I need to do this now. I need to drop my teaching. And she was kind of ready to kind of retire from teaching anyway. And she thought, oh, this is the next step. And so again, I was her mentor, and she kept trying to do different things, and they weren't panning out, and she was getting discouraged. And she was a brilliant teacher. I mean, just her talking about the principles, she was excellent. And finally, I looked at her, I said, you know, for some reason, the direction you're going in isn't making sense. You know, when you keep coming up to something and it's not moving, then sometimes we have to step back and kind of look at, well, is this really what needs to happen? And I learned that from Miss Beverly Hayes. She was my first mentor. And she always said, if one door, you know, if a door closes and you push it, you try to push it through, like by the third time it's not moving, time to go find another door. And boy, that stuck with me. And so I shared that with her. And she didn't want to hear it. And so I said, well, you know, you're doing the best you can. And that was the end of our mentoring. That was it. I think about 6 months later, she asked if I would do a session with her. I said, sure. And she said, well, I just want to share with you what I'm doing. And I want your take on it. Well, here's what she ended up doing. She ended up having a study group of people reading about the principles with whatever was written out there. And that she started having these study groups where people would come together and talk about what it is that they saw in the books and all of that. And she said, and people were really coming on board and that it was getting bigger. I said, that is brilliant. See, she ended up going in the direction that she felt comfortable with. You know, she was very academic in books and things like that. So this felt really good for her, that she could still be in that mode, but now we're just using different subject matter here. And so she found her niche. And so again, that's why I thought this would be a good thing to talk about, because I have so many people are desperate. Cathy, I want to teach this. And when we finally get down to it, one woman called me, I'll tell you story because it's so cute. This one woman called me from the Midwest and she said, Cathy, I want to take this into the prisons and I want to work with you on how to do that. I'm like, okay, sounds great. So, well, tell me why you want to take this into the prisons. Well, because from your stories, it really helps them and I want to help them too. And I said, well, is there a prison nearby? I mean, which prison would you go into? She said, well, there's one about 3 hours away. And I said, okay. I said, well, you would be willing to schlep 3 hours away? She said, well, yeah, I kind of thought about that. And I said, well, okay, well, tell me more. Well, what it came down to was, at the time, Sydney Banks had come into the jails with me. He visited San Jose. He heard about my work, and that's all he would talk about. You know, we'd have conferences, and I want the inmates, I want you to see the video of the inmates, and I want Cathy to tell you. And it drove me nuts because people came to hear him, not me or the inmates, but he kept pushing it because that was a big deal for him. She said, well, Sid told me I should take this into the jails and teach the inmates. And I said, okay, so you're doing this because Sid told you to? She said, well, yeah. I said, well, if Sid told you to jump off a cliff, would you? And she goes, well, no. And I said, well, what's the difference here? I mean, and I was kind of joking with her. I said, you know, I appreciate your heart is in the right place, but really, do you really, really want to go into a prison? And she said, well, not really. And so by the end of the call, we talked about what was going on in her community. Like, what is it that inspires you, or that you see that maybe there's a gap where the principles would be helpful? You know, look at your own world and what do you have a charge on? And see where that goes. And she was so thankful she says, oh, I feel so relieved, because all I could think about is driving for 3 hours. I said, yeah, that you'd have to be really dedicated to want to do that. And I'm going to tell one more story. Then I had another woman call me. She had been involved with the Pransky group. She went out and learned the principles from the Pransky, and she told Linda Pransky, I want to take this into juvenile hall. I want to take this to prisoners in Chicago. And she said, you need to call Cathy Casey. So this woman calls me and I'm like, oh, got a live one here. Well, as I started really getting to know her and talk to her, she was already in the Chicago city system. She was an employee already. She was in charge of or part of human resources there. So she had access to all kinds of people. And as she started, I said, oh, now this one makes sense. This one. So I supported her, I mentored her, and she is now successfully doing this work in Chicago. She's worked with kids in the juvenile justice system. She's taken this with adults. She's just, it's taken off. And I told her, get ready for the ride. And, 2 years later, she said, Cathy, I had no idea, because a lot of people get requests from her. She's just taking this all over the place in the city of Chicago. And if ever there was a need of the principals, the city of Chicago, their murder rate is off the chart. The violence there is really horrible. And so what she's doing God's work is basically what she's doing. But there, see, she had that energy, and you could tell she was connected to it. But also, I don't know how to do this, and I'm clueless. She had that humility. And I said, none of us know how to do this. You just jump in and you learn as you go. So we would debrief, her experiences, and she's just amazing. And so it could go either way. So that's why I came up with this topic. So I don't know what more to share about that. I would love to have questions from you all, because, I don't know if this is like totally something you're not interested in hearing about. I'd be willing to answer a question about anything else. So maybe we could open it up now to anybody who want to make a comment or, again, ask a question. So that's what I'm going to do right now.
Can we just pipe in, or do you want us to raise our hands?
Oh, Deborah, you're fine. Since you started, we'll just start with you.
Hi.
Hey.
So what you're saying is resonating with me so deeply, and it's really, really meaningful. I've been like doing exactly that, like slowly building a little practice over several years, and I kind of feel like I'm pushing against doors that don't want to open. And lately, I've been just letting myself fall into things that I know how to do with my eyes closed. And it's been so much easier and so joyful. But here's my question.
Yes. I love questions.
So, Michael Neal tells the story about George Pransky mentoring someone around writing a book with writer's block.
Yeah.
And George not understanding what writer's block is, because who's to say how long it's supposed to take to write a book?
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing I'm struggling with. Like, are the doors really not opening, or are they just opening slower than I have expectations around?
That is a great question. I'm going to tell you a funny story to answer your question. Same category. George's daughters, Erica and Clara, because I was up there all the time, and each one said, I want to have breakfast with you. I said, fine. So separately, I'd have breakfast with them. And they said, we think you should do these mini YouTube videos, 15-minute spots about stuff, because they love how I taught, and they said they thought it would be a great idea and all that great stuff. And and both of them came up with it. And I said, well, oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. That sounds, yeah, I'd never considered that. And that's a great idea. So when I came, I came back to San Jose, and I went out and got the YouTube, how to use YouTube for dummies, those books that you get. So I thought, I got that book, and then I started shopping around for a special camera to tape them and all that. So every day I would come down for breakfast, and the book was there, and the information would be there, and I'd be looking, I'd go, okay, yeah, I'm going to work on that. Well, this went on for about a month, and I started to feel really bad. I started to feel really guilty, really bad that I wasn't doing something that would probably be really successful. and that would help people. I mean, and so now that I took that book and I hid it away. And then finally I come downstairs, you know, this is like a month later, I come downstairs and all of a sudden it hit me. I don't want to do that. You know, it just hit me like, what are you doing to yourself? I don't want to do little YouTube videos. And it cracked me up. And so I called up the girls and I said, you guys, I hope I don't disappoint you, but I don't want to do that. But that was such a big deal for me because in my mind, why wouldn't I do it? Like I should. So your feeling state is what's going to tell you. There's a difference between, yeah, well, you know, that door is not, what I love about George is he'll approach anybody, you know, he'll knock on any door and kind of not even question that there's a barrier. I mean, he's amazing. He's been, in terms of being a mentor in that direction, he's fearless. He just goes for it. But again, he's realistic too. So you have to trust your own judgment about that. Is it because, you know, it's just the nature of the business you're trying to get into? Like I did some work in this huge public hospital, and we did a program for nurse managers, and it was brilliant and it was successful. And we tried to get in again to work with other departments, but there was so much turmoil and people's minds were just so intense that we couldn't get any traction to get it going. And we finally realized, you know what, we'll just have to back off, and maybe down the line, same with getting into the state prison. We wrote 3 huge proposals to get this into the state system. Never heard a word. Other programs we get funded, we never got funded. So a year later, my dear friend and colleague, Linda Ramus, and I, we just said, okay, well, obviously it wasn't meant to be. She gets a phone call a year later from the head of programs at San Quentin Prison. She said, there's an inmate here who keeps driving me nuts because he thinks we should have your program in our prison. Are you interested? And Linda calls me, she goes, you're going to laugh. It took an inmate to get it. So we ended up doing a program in one of the most notorious prisons in the state of California, as well as the world. We taught the principles in San Quentin Prison. Now, again, we tried really hard. The proposals were brilliant. Amy Chen Mills, or Amy, whatever her name is now, she was a writer. She's a brilliant writer. Linda's an amazing, she can crank these things out. I was coming up with the program, and we just finally said, okay, well, so we did try, but you never know. So when you're just kind of in your life, yeah, you point yourself in a direction you're interested in. So I always say, one day I want to get this into juvenile hall. Like I was working with the adults, the male inmates, but man, I want to get this in for the kids. But I kept doing what I was doing. And one day somebody called me and they said, I have money. Where do you want it to go? The kids. And boom, now we're doing the kids. So yes, keep that direction, keep pointing in that direction. But then, you know, you have to kind of be kind of aware of where is the energy. And if it keeps pushing back on you, then, okay, step back. Okay, well, okay, what am I not seeing? Maybe I should go in, you know, that kind of thing, but never make meaning. I have blown it a couple of times where I left money on the table because I totally screwed up. And George would laugh at me and I'd feel bad. And he'd say, and I'd see so quickly what a stupid thing I didn't see. And you know what he said to me? He said, what I love about you, Cathy, is you get in over your head. That's what you want to do. And yeah, you're going to crash and burn, but you don't want to make meaning about that. I wasn't born knowing how to do this. You know, George said, you know how many times I've told people slam their door in my face, but he didn't make meaning about it. He just sort of looked around like, well, I guess that wasn't meant to be. And he just go knock on another door. Mm-hmm. So that to me is the key, is to really trust yourself and listen to yourself. And it's okay if something's not going to work out. It's totally okay. And step back and see, well, what else can happen here? And to me, that's guided me over the years. And I have done so many different things. I mean, literally so different countries, different environments. And I never like had an agenda to do it. I just sort of followed my intuitive kind of like, okay, what feels right now? And yeah, you do write things up, or yeah, you do talk to people. I mean, there are things to do. And because I hear people say, oh, just listen to your wisdom. No. There are things to do. And I'm good at going into an organization. I'm good at working in community. I was trained in that in my 20s, when I was in Vista Volunteer and I was working in the community and civil rights. I learned those skills to connect and organize people. So those kinds of things are important. Or I learned the skill of being a therapist, and sitting with a person or working with a group. Okay. I learned those skills, but now I have a different set of eyes. So regardless of the context, it's not the exact setup. It's your understanding, your grounding is what's driving the whole thing. So that was probably more than you asked, but
that was awesome. I've got something a little bit unrelated, but maybe it's related.
Well, it depends. Do other people, does anybody else have a question? Because I'd like to give.
I don't need to.
Yeah.
I'd like to get. My question can go to Bonnie, so I'll.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I want to give anybody else who wants to a chance. So, and unless they don't, then we can come back to you. So anybody else have a question?
Yeah.
Okay, who is that? Let me see. Let me go on a speaker here. Hi. I'm not seeing you.
Hi.
Oh, there she is. Hi. And who are you? Hello. I think our connection's not good.
Hi, Cathy.
Oh, who am I? Okay. I see a picture, but I don't know who I'm talking to.
Okay, let me try one second.
There you are. Yeah, now I see
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but you weren't moving. You were frozen. You're frozen again. So your video is not working very well. Yeah, it's not working.
Yeah, I'll try to turn your video off and see if we can hear you.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Yeah. Let's see if that works.
And there's something that's happening between a few of my clients in the same time, and there's kind of maybe something that I'm not seeing myself. Of suddenly like a block of sharing this inside out understanding. Like it's so clear to me that like it's just so clear to me, and I'm just like at a like I don't know. So I'm just, asking a question on, maybe it's more listening, maybe it's sitting more, maybe it's just the place of the state of where I am, just to hear what you have to say.
I'm not sure what your question is though. So you're working with clients and you're clear, but they're not clear.
Yeah, it's like there is something that it's so clear to me that it works this way.
Yes.
And then there's like when I think about it, I remember a conversation I heard you having a long time ago of talking about just coming back to the moment, coming back to the moment. And maybe it's not my job for people to get it when I think they should be getting it.
Yeah.
But if there's anything around that, so.
Okay. Well, I think that, there's kind of a setup, and that's why there are times I don't like doing one-on-ones, because the setup is people are coming to me to get help. Okay. Whether it's coaching, counseling, they come with an issue. It's rare that I have somebody call me and say, I want to go deeper with the principles. It's rare that I get that. Usually they're coming to me with a problem. So already there's kind of a there where they need help and I'm the one that's going to help them. See, that's where we start getting into trouble. So the point I want to make right now is I am not here to help people have a better experience. I am not here to help people get over their issues. See, I used to, I mean, I got a master's degree in clinical psychology to help people deal with their issues and to help people have less stress and to help people have a better life. That was my goal. See, I don't have that anymore. See, I don't have this goal of helping people feel better. Now, I know that sounds bizarre because, you know, if you hear me talk about the work I've done, it certainly addresses all of that. But that's not my intent. So that's the piece that all of us have to see is, and that's a real grounding piece. I am here just to point people in the direction of within them and just kind of show them how they work as a human being. I have no thinking about their issues or how, I mean, I care. I don't want people to suffer, but I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on the fact that they have this amazing knowledge inside of them. And wow, if they realize it, then they could find their own answers for whatever they're dealing with. Or they could get new, kind of look at their own logic that they're creating with their mind that they don't even know they're creating, and realize that they're operating from a logic that is not true. It was just made up by them and they didn't know it. So that's what I'm about. So when somebody's sitting in front of me and they're sitting there going, but Cathy, it really is my husband. He did sleep with other women. He is treating me badly. See, yeah, what am I going to say to her? Oh, it's just your thinking? No, she's hurting. She's suffering. But I'm not there to help her deal with that. What I know is she has a capacity. In fact, I had a client, she called me with all this crazy stuff. And she said, I need help. I'm coming to you. I said, here's the thing. I'm not here to help you deal with him in that situation. I'm here to help you get as connected as you can be to your own God-given wisdom. That's what our work is going to be. And of course, every session she'd go on and on about her husband. He was doing this and doing that. And I kind of let that go for about 5 sessions because it was so raw for her. But on the 6th session, I said to her, it's fine with me, but it seems like you're paying me a lot of money and you're giving him a lot of airtime and you're not taking any of this time for yourself. I mean, have you noticed that? Or what do you think about that? And whoa, she goes, yeah, that's true. Well, I don't want to talk about him anymore. I said, well, sounds good to me. And then we talked about her understanding and let me tell you, she became my teacher because I would have thrown the book at him. But see, it was her life. It wasn't my life. So this is a big deal thing to see. And sometimes you have to help your client see the same thing and whatever way you want to do that. But you have to see for yourself. I am not here to help people understand the principles and their life is going to change. No, I'm here to just get a connection with them. And maybe at some point they will realize something. And it's an art. It's you muck around in it. You get curious. You talk about things. I mean, there's no one way to do this work. So maybe it's not so much you shouldn't be doing the work as much as, well, what am I really here for? And it's subtle. See, it's really subtle that, oh, I want them to feel better, or somebody's paying me money. I better help them get, they better deal with their issue. Okay. You got to see that that's what's rattling around in your head. And that's your own grounding. That we used to call that the health of the helper. Me being grounded is the most, that's 98% of it. And then the 2% is, frosting on the cake. So thank you for asking that. So see what happens. Cathy. Yeah. See what happens. See what happens.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else?
Hey, Cathy, it's Ellen. Nice to see you.
Hey.
Can you hear?
Let me get, I'm switching back. There she is. Hi.
Hi. Nice to see you. This has been so rich and so meaningful. And I feel like the question that's present for me is takes from everything that you've shared and both what Yael and Deborah asked. So this morning I was given information from one family member that another family member isn't interested in what I have to say because I don't believe there's anything wrong with them. And it really was really powerful from, my initial response was, well, no, it's just that there's also, people just also have well-being. People also have mental health along with their stuff.
Yeah.
And, but then after I did that, I reflected and it was like, wow, maybe I do that. Maybe I have a tendency to do that. And it was like, well, I work with people a lot around physical stuff and physical health. And I was like, well, I don't tell people that their physical pain isn't real.
Yeah.
And maybe this person heard me say her emotional pain isn't real. And I just would love some.
I'm telling you this, especially the closer we are to people, especially like with the work that I do. I mean, I see these miracles everywhere. And then I'm the oldest of 10. Okay. So a lot of siblings and some of them really messed up, going through stuff. And boy, this was a big wake-up call for me because I have this one brother who, and I've told the story before, but I'll do the short version, who was a mess. He was addicted to methamphetamine. He tended to be bipolar. I mean, he was a mess. And the whole family we would hold our breath waiting for the call that he was dead. A few times he was in jail, but everybody was sitting in dread. And out of the blue, he would call me and I would do the Spanish Inquisition. Where are you living? Do you have a job? The old social worker in me would just do this thing with him. And you could tell he just didn't want to even, it made him uncomfortable. So anyway, I'm teaching a group of parents, who are losing their parental rights to their kids. I mean, this is what we're doing because they were addicted to drugs. And I'm talking about how, we are not in charge of their lives. Sometimes we need to let go and it's tough. And as I'm teaching them, it hit me. I'm not doing that with my brother. As I'm teaching these, I'm like, what are you talking about? You're sharing this with them. You're not seeing it for yourself. I even told him that as I'm having the insight in the middle of the session. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, when he calls me, he feels this, with good intention, I'm wanting him to be okay, but he felt the judgment. He felt whatever it was he felt. That's why we never heard from him. So the next time he called me, which was like 3 months later, I didn't do the Spanish Inquisition. Oh, glad you called. And I just, hey, what's new? What's happening? I just kept it really light, neutral, whatever. 2 weeks later, he called me, sis, I'm in trouble. I'm hearing voices. I'm not doing well. I'm messed up. And I said, okay, I'm coming to get you. So I got him. I got him to my place and I got him on meds right away. And he had been off the methamphetamine, thank goodness. And the next day I had to do a 3-day training. He insisted on sitting in on it. I said, no, I want you to stay home. The meds are heavy duty. You need to rest. No, he insisted. So he sat there getting on psych meds and he was listening. And between the meds and hearing the principles, boom. Now, had I not changed, and I love what you're sharing because you're starting to be hip to what you're starting to see it for yourself. See, it's really subtle. It's really subtle and people feel it. They feel it. And I finally realized that the connection to my brother was more important than anything else. So that was a big deal for me.
Yeah, I love that.
That was a big deal.
And thank you for giving me an opportunity to really reflect that.
Yes.
It's pretty amazing. Because of the understanding, I haven't jumped into rescue mode. But what you're saying, it's but my knowing of I don't want to hold back.
I know.
My knowing of innate mental health.
Yeah. See, you can see it. You can see the health.
Without sharing it.
Yeah, yeah. See, here's the thing. I deal with people all over the place that on the surface, they look like they don't have it. I mean, they've murdered people. They've done bad things going on in the country right now. You know, oh yeah, they have mental well-being. No, they do. They're just not connected to it.
Mm-hmm.
See
And
that?
yes,
Yeah, they're not connected to it. That's neutral. That's neutral. That's neutral.
That's okay. So
Yes.
can I just say out loud and then I'll
say,
finish?
please
So
do.
that's when I tell people that they have it and they don't feel like they have it, they completely don't feel heard.
Right.
But when I say that they have it and they're just not connected to it, or I don't even have to say it. I just have to say it, know it, you know, in there.
Yeah.
Because I don't really have a lot of conversations with this person. I really just connect on life. But thank you very much. And thank you all for.
Yeah. No, I've learned more from the people who are closest to me have been my teachers.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah. That's where the rubber hits the road. Yeah. And believe me, rude awakenings. But now I'm grateful because, of course, we want people to be okay. You know, especially when we know this really does make a difference. See, that's the two-edged sword here. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like you have,
current suffering is not necessary. Yeah,
exactly. But you know, yeah. Thank you. And hang in there.
Thanks.
You're doing brilliant work. Okay, how are we doing on time? We still have a little more time. Anybody else?
So I've just unmuted myself, I think.
Okay, great.
And
excellent.
Because this last week I baked a cake and I decided at the last minute not to put the icing on. And so when you mentioned that, I hadn't been listening carefully, but my ears pricked up when you said the icing is only 2%, because actually the cake was delicious and it didn't need that icing at all.
Yes.
I wondered if you could just say a little bit, because I wasn't concentrating.
Yeah. Well, it's a great metaphor. It's funny that got your attention, though, didn't it?
That's for sure.
Well, basically, see, I am not attached to doing this work. Okay, I'm really not. I mean, I love doing it. I love doing sessions like this. I used to love going into the jail, and loved it. But if I didn't say another word about the principles for the rest of my life, that's okay too. See, to me is just being in my life and being here on the planet with whatever I see and just, again, whatever it is I see, that has a rippling effect somehow. Okay. So my grounding, my understanding is 98% of it. Now, the 2% is if I do go into the jail and I want to, talk about the principles with them, or if I do go into a corporation in a leadership program and talk about the principles in the context of, those are, I love doing them, but that wasn't the thing for me. It was just living my life. And Sid many times he would just say that to us: live your life, be with your family, and your kids, because of your understanding, your kids are grounded, and then they impact other kids. And, he really saw it in that way. But yeah, we do have opportunities where we can share it. And the frosting part, which is fun and it tastes good. But me just living my life, and I loved what Helen shared, because to this day, I still come up against my own personal thinking about family members and have to wake up to the fact that that's me creating that, or they pick up from me, Cathy's, trying to change she's trying to change me or whatever. That's something that I learn from more than just the work that I do in general, or listening to any tape of Sid or anything like that. So to me, your understanding, wherever you see this, is fabulous. And, you know, I'm just here on the planet to see more of that. And if I don't, that's fine. If I do, that's fine too, but I don't get attached to it. I don't get attached to it. So that's what I meant. But frosting's good. Frosting's good. Like carrot cake. I love the frosting on carrot cake because it's got cream cheese in it.
Well, this one was made with rum and icing sugar.
Wow. Well, that sounds pretty good too.
It does. But the cake had a lot of rum in it
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Hey,
So
there you
I can
go.
tell you, it really wasn't necessary.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, it
yeah.
just
yeah. So you can take that as a metaphor for life.
absolutely
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
delicious metaphor. So.
Yes, very delicious.
So
Now I
thank
want to
you.
go have a piece of cake. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm willing to go one more. Anybody want to do?
Hi, Cathy.
Hi, is that Susan?
Hi, Susan. Hi, yeah. I've been in the Three Principles community for about 10 years now.
You look
And I've-
familiar to me. You look familiar. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's always, I've always heard that you shouldn't mix the Three Principles with anything else. And I've been following that path for 9 of the last 10 years, but I've had recently, in the last couple of years, real problems with my eldest son, who's just turned 18 now. It's been a roller coaster, and obviously the Three Principles has helped me keep relatively calm, or bring me down when I'm losing it.
Okay.
But in the last year, I've been learning about attachment theory and things around that. It's really, really, really helped me.
Okay.
We're getting him out of the trouble he's been in. And I want to switch my marriage coaching practice to doing parent-teen relationship coaching. But the solution I see involves this attachment theory as well as the Three Principles, which means I'm mixing the approaches. And I don't know if that means that I'm going off the path and getting confused, but to me it makes sense. It makes it's been more helpful than the attachment theory side in bringing him back than the Three Principles has, albeit the Three Principles helps me deal with me.
Right.
And understand him as well.
Yeah. Okay, now this is being recorded, so I can't say, don't quote me on this, so I'm going to have to say it. Here's my thinking about this. I was pretty much, personally, I've been through 12-step program in my early 30s. Personally, I've been through 12-step. I was trained in psychotherapy. I'm trained as a social worker. Very much in that world, okay? And then I shifted into the principles, and then, okay, pure principles. And over the years, as I've been doing this work, a lot of the folks we were teaching here in Santa Clara County, I had a class in the evening, and the word got out through 12-step about my class. So all these 12-step people would come to sit in my class, and they were in programs mandated by the court. They were in, behavioral programs and 12-step program. They were all in those kinds of programs. And I used to have a lot of thinking about that. That's, wrong. Somehow that's wrong. And boy, did I have to wake up to my arrogance about, like, somehow I know more, or I have the answer and these other people don't. So the first thing you need to just for yourself is, trust your wisdom about things, okay? But what I always say is, when people were in my class who were in all these programs, and I would ask them, so tell me about 12-step. Now, what do you love about 12-step? And I could say, what do you love? What is it about the attachment theory that really helps you, okay? What is that? And then I ask people, okay, now, given that, now, how is it that you're able to feel better in a 12-step meeting? Like, what is that? Oh, people share, and I don't feel so alone, and blah, blah, blah. And then I'd say, okay, now, if you weren't doing the 12-step program and you're out on your own, then what happens? Oh, things go wrong, and things don't work out, and I get all mixed up. And I'd say, well, so what happened to, what's different between what you were in the 12-step program to now? Like what changed? See, now I'm looking at, well, what's behind the experience of people in the 12-step program? What's behind the attachment theory that helps you somehow get your son, you know, out of this, you know, whatever he was in? Like what's behind that that allowed you to use something to help him? Like what's behind that? And is he able to hear what's behind what it is you're trying to do with him? You know, potentially. And I don't know all the details, but if some behave like I'm a grandmother, so my little grandson, he's very, very, well, the two of them, they're very afraid of loud noises. I mean, big time. And they have to wear their little earmuffs. And so if there's a loud noise, they start to fall apart a little bit. And I kind of look at that. I'm like, isn't this interesting? Somehow they got a thought that the loud noise was going to hurt them. Because I asked him, I said, so what don't you like about the loud noise? And he said to me, well, it can hurt me. And that's when I realized, oh, that's their little logic that they've created with their mind. Okay. So me just seeing that really makes a difference with them, like to just get curious with them. So it's the same thing for you. I'm going to tell a story. One last story. I had a dear friend and colleague who was married to somebody who was a diehard alcoholic, like diehard, that's it. And there aren't many pure ones left anymore. And it was killing her to see him kill himself over I mean, she's watching him and she knew the principles. She really had a really sense of the principles. And she was like, well, I should be doing something. I don't know what to do. This is bad. This is terrible. I should leave him. But then if I leave him, he'll die. I mean, she was just in a quandary. And she talked to me a few times and I'd listen to her and I'd reflect. And finally I said, out of the blue, I said, I want you to go to an Al-Anon meeting. She goes, really? I said, yeah. I don't know why, but that makes sense to me right now. So I really want you to do that. Would you be up for this? She goes, well, sure. I said, well, I want you to go to maybe 2 or 3. Just go. She goes, okay. So Al-Anon is for people who are with other people who have addiction. Okay. She goes to the Al-Anon meeting and I think she went to 2 different ones. So a month later, she calls me and I said, oh, did you go to the Al-Anon meeting? She goes, yeah, I did. And I said, so what happened? She goes, oh my God, thank you for making me go to that. I said, well, why? What happened? I thought I had to come up with a definitive answer of what I should do. She said, I heard from people who were with people who were still drinking or using, and they stayed in the relationship. They're still in there. I heard from people who left the relationship even after the person stopped drinking. She saw all different variations. And her insight was, there's no one way to do this. The pressure came off her. Just this whole pressure. And she said, I'm just going to do what makes sense to me. And I'm not going to worry about I have to make a decision or what should I do or not do. She literally, you could just see the relief in her. And that was a huge burden. So that's, and if I told my colleagues, guess what? I told a person to go to Al-Anon, they look at me like, what is wrong with me? But in the moment, it made sense and it worked. Now, if she had come back and said, that was the worst experience of my life and those people are screwed up, I was, well, okay, never mind, you know, oh, well. But for some reason, it occurred to me that might be helpful to her. So you see, people have wisdom and we're going to find all different kinds of ways to find our answers. But the thing is, what I point people to is, okay, you love 12-step, that's great. Now, what's behind that? What's behind that? People shoot up heroin. Tell me, what do you get from shooting up heroin? They go, what do you mean? I said, well, what do you get from it? Oh, Cathy, it relieves my pain and I'm not worried. I mean, whatever it is they tell me. And then I said, oh, that's great. And the fact that they're doing that means that they know there's a place to get to. And I talk about, well, what if I told you that place is there already and that the using is allowing you to connect to it? And they look at me like I'm crazy, but I want them to realize that it's not the drug, that place is there. It's just this other thing is keeping them from experiencing it. I mean, to me, I don't care what people do, but I will point them to what's behind it. So maybe you can kind of reflect on, well, what is it about the attachment theory? What's
Yeah,
behind that?
I think I just realized actually, I think I have a lot of thinking about trying to understand something.
Yeah.
And because that makes so much sense to me, it's as to explain what's happened, it's probably helped me drop a lot of thinking.
Whatever,
Yeah.
you know, good glass of wine can help me sometimes. Trust me, there have been moments when things aren't going well. Glass of wine, please, now. And not sipping. I just chug it down because I can't hang. Okay, now there's a deeper part of me that knows, well, the wine is not what's doing it. It's just that it's just helping me get out of my head. But eventually the wine is not going to be the answer. You know, I know that. But again, yeah, we're all just trying to kind of figure out the world and figure out ourselves. And to me, the less meaning we make about how we're doing it, the better off we will be.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really helpful. Yeah, it makes sense
yeah.
to me at the moment. So I'm going to go with
Fabulous,
that.
fabulous. And good luck with your son.
Thank you.
All righty. Okay. We covered a lot today.
Did, and what a great conversation to end up on. This was
a
wonderful talk. Yeah, thank you so much, Kathy. So
my pleasure.
Pleasure to listen to you and hear what you have to share. So I really
Yeah. So happy New Year to everybody.
And I just want to let everybody know the next webinar is January 21st, and it's with Angus and Rohini Ross.
Oh, they're fabulous. Oh, I wanted to go home and live with them. After I met them, spend time with them, can I live with you guys? They're wonderful people. Wonderful people.
We will see a lot of you then.
Anyway.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you very much, Bonnie.